Hmm. Good morning. The title for today is the OPPT, that's One People's Public Trust, and CVAC, and important Cvacs, that's Creators Value, I forgot, Access Centers, um, I'm Action Centers, I guess, Creators Value Action Centers. Uh, I'm not sure of. Anyway, yesterday was an education day for me. I watched several videos and read a good bit. I'm going to be short with my blurb today and just let it fly, especially since I forgot that daylight savings time began earlier. I lost an hour and have to rush this morning, and I forgot the word to. That's it. That's all of my blurb. Uh, indeed, I actually woke up like 2 o'clock. I don't know the exact time because I didn't look at the clock till uh, 2:25, and then I looked at it again at 2:44. But I was awake, you know, for a good while, and then I uh, got up after meditating for a while. I got up and I did not go to the meditation room today. I was planning on doing that a little bit later, but I came to the computer first out of bed. After taking care of necessities, and uh, just checked to see if there was any fresh emails and stuff. And when I looked at the clock, my goodness, it was already 4:34, like 10 minutes ago. And I hadn't written a blurb or anything yet. I still hadn't even gone into the meditation room, which I spend a little bit of time in there most every day. When it's really cold, sometimes I have a tendency to want to stay in bed, but it's warmed up a little bit now, so I did plan on going in there this morning. Anyway, yesterday, as I said, was a very educational day for me. I read a very long article called The Fascinating Process of Self-Liberation Under Common Law, which another title in the same article is The Fascinating Story of Civil Law versus Divine Common Law by Aaron Lammertink, and I don't know who he is, uh, but it's an extremely long article, and I read that uh, yesterday later in the day, and I watched a video that was an hour and 20 minutes or something like that long, which was actually a sermon lecture by a man that I guess is from South Africa. I don't remember his name, but it's a doctor or something. He's actually a college professor. Uh, but he talked about, it was like going back to my early Christian days of listening to biblical prophecy of Daniel and Revelation and Zechariah. Not Zechariah, not even that. Yeah. Well, anyway, some of the minor prophets, and I'm drawing a blank in this moment. But he was teaching some of the same things that I learned as a fundamentalist Christian. And it was interesting to me that I was actually seeing some of those things with a different perspective than I had when I was younger. Uh, and I was amazed that I was actually resonating with some of the things, but in a different way than I resonated when I was younger. Maritime law comes from um, comes from the sea. I never thought of it as being the Holy See or the Vatican. And he, in his lecture and in this article, points out that the Vatican is behind all of the injustices in the world, all of the cruelty, all of the crimes against humanity. It's the Vatican, and specifically the Jesuits that have been responsible for committing these crimes against humanity, all the pogroms and the inquisitions and the witch hunts and everything else. A heretic is a person, which I didn't realize this. I thought a heretic was a person that didn't go along with common doctrine, but it's a person that thinks for themselves. That's the definition of a heretic, a person who thinks for themselves. Well, in this world, there's an awful lot of heretics, and they're not going to win this time. And that is why I chose the title. And by the way, there were dreams that I was having, uh, all sorts of drama going on in my dreams. You know, I went to sleep actually listening to Heather, uh, who of course is the founder of the lawyer that created the documents for the OPPT. And I was thinking about, because I'm meeting today with some people from Orlando about Cvacs. And I was pondering, one of the things that I was doing this morning was pondering, what are the important Cvacs? And education is, of course, one of the big ones, but even bigger than education. If the OPPT is going to be successful, it has to control the money. It has to gain control of monetary resources in the world in order to enable a bridge between the old and the new. In other words, who makes the payroll that keeps the system going long enough to do the education part that we need to do to properly educate humanity and let people know our real history and the real history of the world that has been hidden from us for a long time by the church, by the governments, by the corporations, by the institutions of so-called higher learning. We need to write that and also take control of the media as another important CVAC. If we don't do these three things, that is, have the ability to make the payroll of the current system, change who's in charge of paying the bills, in other words, to keep the system running. And you say, Ron, why would you want to keep the system running? Because it has to keep running, at least for a little while, till we can maintain control of the media, and which is part of the education program of re-educating people about the truth. And it is re-education. The maritime law operates by making its own rules. I watched it, actually listened to an interview yesterday with four people, two pro-OPPT, Dean Clifford, who was on the fence, basically a skeptic, and I don't remember the other person's name, but he was anti-OPPT. And it was an interesting interview, and Dean Clifford especially I was interested in, because he made the statement that in our admiralty courts, they make up the rules on the moment as they go along. In other words, there's no justice. There's no standard. There's no standard by which they apply everything. It's hit and miss, and there's no necessarily rhyme or reason for it. But he also said that the OPPT doesn't have the authority to foreclose on all of these corporations, which I think is bunk. I didn't agree with him on everything, but I enjoyed listening to his viewpoint, even when I was disagreeing with him. The thing is, the OPPT takes it back beyond all of the fictional law of the empires in our world, or the beasts as they're called in biblical prophecy. All of these empires, before they even came into existence, there was common law. In other words, there were spiritual principles by which man was intended to govern himself, ourselves, so that we would live in harmony with each other and with nature and take proper dominion over the world, not dominion in dominating, but dominion in exercising prudence and exercising justice and exercising grace and being loving and compassionate and intelligently awake. But we fell far from that as the empires began to exert their influence, which, of course, from the higher perspective, was so that we could accelerate the evolution of consciousness. It's really important that we not miss that fact, that all of the dark stuff, all of the great contrast that we've had to deal with in our world has been for the purpose of waking us up and getting us to the point where we could, as physical beings appearing separate, where we could recognize the field in which we live and thereby recognize the interconnectedness of all life and the unity of everything. Whether it appears unified or not, there is a unity to life. There is a certain homeostasis, a balance that's been going on, even at the times when it appeared most imbalanced, which was really what that article and the video was really good about, how the Catholic Church, specifically the Vatican, how it has manipulated events throughout time in our recent era of history. When I say recent, we're going back a few millennium at least, a couple of millennium at least, but it really goes back even further than that to Babylon and Persia and some of the other empires that were the great empires. And actually, Persia wasn't all that bad. I mean, Darius was a good emperor, and there were some good things that were happening back then. But in any case, the article was very educational for me, and that video, sermon, lecture was also of value. Now, I probably, before I finish today, before I post this, I'm going to post the link to, and it's actually from the Netherlands, about Republic, and it's about, the article touches on republics, it touches on the OPPT, and as well as ecclesiastical law or civil law versus divine common law. I'm going to post that link in the blurb for those of you that are on YouTube that don't go to Facebook. It's already been posted on Facebook, but it's going to be in the blurb today, so that those of you that don't like Facebook and stay away from it can have a chance to read the article, and if you choose to listen to the video. But as I was saying, we have to be able to let the police forces and the military forces know that the payroll is under new directorship. Somebody else is saying how you're to act. And there's a new rule. Common law now is the law of the land. That's what the OPP does. It reestablishes and restores common law, as I said yesterday. And in common law, where there is no injured party, there can be no claim. There can be no standing before a common law court, unlike the civil court, which overrules, which as Dean Clifford says, they make up the rules as they go along, because it's not about justice. It's about maintaining control. It's about maintaining fear and maintaining an anxiety within the people that doesn't allow us to reach our fullest potential, because we keep waffling back and forth between inspiration and anxiety. and I know, I mean, I experience it. There are times I'm feeling really connected, really on top of the world, and then there's times that I'm absolutely, I almost said terrified, but I don't really think that terrified is the proper word, because it doesn't reach that level anymore. But there certainly is a deep level of anxiety in wondering how it's going to play out in my life personally. And I know I'm not the only one that feels that. We don't know how the system's going to work. So when the Cvacs are established, and they were supposed to be established this weekend, according to Heather, we'll see how that pans out. But if it is established that the Saint Germain Trust and these world trusts can take control of the world finances, and if indeed the Vatican is broke, as one interviewer One interview said yesterday the Vatican is broke. It no longer has control of any of its resources. It's finished. It's done. That system, that whore, that Babylon the Great, that mother of harlots that rules over the kings of the earth, the Vatican, is dead. Is dead in its tracks. The Pope resigning. There's not going to be another. If there's another Pope, it's going to be very, 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 very short-lived. Because truth is winning the battle, and the lies can no longer be dominant. But we need to let the military and the police know, hey, you're now operating under common law, and you are personally accountable, which is what the courtesy notices do. You are personally accountable for your actions. And if you behave wrongly, then you're going to have to pay the consequences or suffer the consequences of behaving improperly. We are taking the world back, but we need to have the support of the police and the military to fully carry it out for those holdouts that still want to maintain dominion and forceful control over the people. That has to stop. That has to end. They do not have the freedom to exercise that anymore. That freedom is gone for them to be able to control the world. It has to be gone, or otherwise nothing that we do will work. And we need to educate the masses. We need to put the money into as rapid a re-education program as possible. Other things are good too, like the alternative energy things and all of the other technologies that have been suppressed. But education and making the payroll of the people that enforce the new rule, those are the critical Cvacs that must be addressed at this time, in my opinion, as I see it. And I thank you for listening as I've shared this hit and miss random ramblings. Namaste.